Hillary Clinton, the queen of the Russian collusion hoax that cost taxpayers tens of millions of dollars in a wasted investigation, is now calling for the jailing of Americans who spread misinformation. You can't make this stuff up. We're going to look at the latest incoherent drivel coming from this washed-up, corrupt has-been, and we're going to see what's really behind this hysterical, hypocritical rant. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you stay sane in these insane times. You know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe. But before we dive in here, you may have noticed that there has been a major uptick in whatever version of COVID is swirling around these days. The reality is that wherever the virus came from, it appears to very much be a part of the human population as of now. And that means that a lot of us are very concerned about the adverse effects of the spike protein in our bodies. Whether you got the shot or not, the spike protein is not something you want in your system. So that's why I've partnered with the Wellness Company, because they offer proven preventative solutions to assist the body in spike protein elimination with Dr. Peter McCullough's Spike Detox Trio protocol. Now, the best time to take this is prior to travel and during, and or if you hear about a new wave of COVID. This protocol is being used globally by many doctors, and it's 100% natural. So if you recently had a bad bout of the virus or you want to detox from the shot, the medical board at the Wellness Company is here for you. Click on that link below or go to twc.health/Turley. Then use code Turley for an exclusive $45 off and free shipping. You heard that right. Use promo code Turley and you're going to get $45 off and free shipping. Click on that link below right now. The author of the Russian collusion hoax was just on with her chief apologist, Rachel Maddow, on the Misinformation channel, MSNBC, and the conversation took a rather bizarre and embarrassingly hypocritical turn.
You mentioned the press, and sadly, the press is still not able to cover Trump the way that they should. They careen from one outrage to the next. What was outrageous 3 days ago is no longer on the front pages, even though it threatens the physical safety of so many people, particularly, as you point out, immigrants that he and Vance have decided to demonize. And I don't understand why it's so difficult for the press to have a consistent narrative about how dangerous Trump is. The late, great journalist Harry Evans, one time said that, journalists should, really try to achieve objectivity. And by that, he said, I mean, they should cover the object. Well, the object in this case is Donald Trump. His demagoguery, his danger to our country and the world, and stick with it.
And then, if you could believe it, the conversation, if you could call it that, turned, I kid you not, it turned to what else?
I think it's important to indict the Russians, just as Mueller indicted a lot of Russians who were engaged in direct election interference and boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence, because the Russians are unlikely, except in a very few cases, to ever stand trial in the United States. They're not going to be going to a country where they can be extradited or even returning to the United States unless they are very foolish. So I think we need to uncover all of the connections and make it very clear that you could vote however you want. But we are not going to let adversaries, whether it is Russia, China, Iran, or anybody else, basically try to influence Americans as to how we should vote in picking our leaders.
So you heard it yourself. Hillary came out last night and basically advocated civil or criminal penalties against Americans who peddle disinformation or particular Russian disinformation. Now, There's just so many angles we can rip this apart from. I mean, the obvious one is the embarrassingly rank hypocrisy here that anyone could see. I mean, it's been widely documented and reported that woman that you just heard denouncing the spread of misinformation, that very woman contributed to the fabrication of the Russian collusion hoax, and she approved a plan to disseminate that hoax to a legacy media all too willing to report it, most particularly Rachel Maddow of MSNBC, who, of course, Hillary was talking to. Rachel Maddow was excoriated by her fellow journalists for her dereliction of duty as a supposed journalist. So the hypocrisy doesn't just extend to Hillary. It implicates Maddow as well. But nothing in the end matches Hillary's contempt for truth. For example, when Hillary tweeted this out on October 31st of 2016, just a week before her campaign went down in flames, she said this, quote, "Computer scientists have apparently uncovered a covert server linking the Trump organization to a Russian-based bank." Now, when she tweeted that out, she knew she was tweeting out fabricated misinformation that she herself helped fabricate. She knew that. We have sworn court testimony from Clinton's 2016 campaign manager, Robert Mook, that confirms she knew, when she tweeted that out, she knew it was pure and complete and total bunk. She knew she was tweeting out misinformation. But somehow, some way, she appears immune from the very punitive measures she wants to apply to others. I wonder why that is. Think it through. How can Hillary not only say the things that she's saying there, but also how can Rachel Maddow go along with such obvious rank hypocrisy? How does her audience go along with that? Well, there's an answer to that. This is where I think a very deep analysis of what these psychopaths are doing here, where I think it's so important, that kind of analysis. It's not that Hillary is a hypocrite. I mean, that's obvious. Nor is it simply a matter of her own self-preservation. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, make no mistake. What Hillary's saying there is very much a matter of self-interest. I mean, think about it. She's scared to death of what might happen to her and her ilk were Trump to walk back into that Oval Office with the power of the presidency. Hillary and the whole of the deep state, that's about as rotten as she is haggard, they all believe the return of Trump is an absolute existential threat to their power and control. Trump, Vance, Kennedy, Vivek, they all together represent the single greatest threat to the administrative state that the administrative state has ever seen. Well, certainly since 2016, but as Trump has admitted, he was far too trusting in his first term. He tried to make peace with the establishment in the hopes that they would cooperatively go along with his reforms. Instead, they sought to betray and undermine him every step of the way, most especially with the help of Hillary Clinton and the Russian collusion hoax. So obviously she and her deep state ilk are scared to death of Trump coming back. But something far more consequential is behind what she just said there. Again, like with the Russian collusion hoax, Hillary knows what she's doing here. She is very intentionally drawing from frames of reference that comprise what scholars call a risk society. And a risk society involves the various ways in which politicians increase their power and control by alarming the population of the imminence of harm and danger. We saw this, unfortunately, coming from the Republicans after 9/11 with the justification of the passage of the Patriot Act, which initiated the rise of the surveillance state. It's beyond ironic, is it not, that the very anti-terrorist measures that Republicans passed in the early 2000s are now being used against predominantly Republicans, like we're seeing with the J6 protesters, who've now been deemed as one of the single greatest what? As one of the single greatest what? Threats, yes, threats to our democracy. This is essential for Hillary Clinton's propaganda to work. She's got to convince a significant number of people that their safety is at risk and that the only solution to that danger is for them to give up some of their freedoms. So that's the pattern of the expanse of the state in what scholars call a risk society. That's why they focus so much attention on the threats of so-called disinformation or misinformation, which of course begs the immediate question. Why then, Hillary, are you not being prosecuted for this? Why isn't Rachel Maddow being prosecuted? If civil or criminal charges should be levied against those who are knowingly spreading misinformation that is detrimental to our democratic process, then why aren't the both of you at the front of the line of accountability? And we all know the answer. It's entailed in the whole notion of a risk society. Because none of this ultimately has anything to do with risk. It has nothing to do with harm. It has nothing to do with danger. It has everything to do with what? With power and control. That's why the Democrats and the legacy media are never accountable for the blatant falsehoods they spread. They're never accountable precisely because such accountability is itself a tool for them to acquire more power and control. A tool for them to acquire more power and control. That's it. And Hillary Clinton just gave us a masterclass on what that very Democrat deception looks like.